Hi guys, welcome to our video as we continue the lesson on female reproductive endocrinology. Having talked about gametogenesis and folliculogenesis, we're going to talk more about the regulation of the menstrual cycle. In particular, we're going to talk more about the hormones that are involved. And we're going to take you beyond the ovulatory stage, which is really where we took you up to through folliculogenesis, and we'll take you through the luteal stage and complete the cycle at the same time. So, no great surprise here. The hypothalamus pituitary gonadal axis is the primary axis that we're dealing with here when we talk about the hormonal regulation in the female. So we start with the hypothalamus, and that releases GnRH, of course, and there's our pituitary, and GnRH stimulates the pituitary to release FSH and LH, and that stimulates the ovary to produce estradiol, which feeds back on the pituitary and the hypothalamus in a negative manner and keeps its own secretion under control. Okay. We also have secretion of inhibin, which its primary purpose is to feed back on the pituitary and inhibit the release of FSH, and that is going to come into play here in during the rest of the lesson. And we also have activin, which is secreted by the ovary. That actually it stimulates the release of FSH. Your slide will be correct. And it's a lot less well understood, but it's probably most important during the follicular phase. Probably causes the release of FSH at the same time that the LH surge takes place, and we'll get to that. So the feedback of estradiol on the pituitary and the hypothalamus will change from negative to positive when we get the LH surge that happens with ovulation. So bear that in mind as we go through. And this is a favorite figure of ours. It is real data, and it takes you through the profile of changes over the menstrual cycle of progesterone, open symbols here, estradiol or estrogen closed symbols, LH open symbols down here, and FSH closed symbols down here. And we will be referring to this figure quite a bit. The days in the menstrual cycle down here are relative to the LH peak, or the mid-cycle, which is 0 here. So bear that in mind, but the days progress from left to right, with 0 being the LH surge. All right. Also note, inhibin A and B, we are not going to distinguish between these two for the purposes of my own lessons, but we will be addressing the role of inhibin in this process as well. As you guys will recall from the last video, you get this large increase in FSH. This is a result of the fact that you have estrogen feeding back on follicular cells and causing proliferation of the follicular cells. And so the more estrogen you secrete, the more of the follicular cells that you are producing. And this is kept under control by feedback inhibition upon the hypothalamus and the pituitary, but nevertheless the potential to increase estrogen is increasing all during this time. So this is the follicular phase that we talked about. And then you get this increase in estrogen, where the estrogen production finally starts to increase because you've just produced so much of the follicular cells that, the granulosa cells, excuse me, that you start to increase the estrogen here, and you get an increase in estrogen for a day or two, and if it's sustained long enough and high enough, that results in your LH surge, which gives you ovulation. Okay? The estrogen during that phase primes the action of, primes the hypothalamus to secrete more GnRH, and probably most importantly, it increases the stores of LH in preparation for that LH surge and the release that's coming up. Okay? The LH surge is likely due to the fact that the hypothalamus loses sensitivity to an inhibitory signal, and that inhibitory signal is carried by dopamines and endorphins. So you lose sensitivity to dopamines and endorphins. That reduces the sensitivity to the estradiol, and so you get that reduces the sensitivity to that reduces the inhibitory signal that these mediate, and that really starts your release of GnRH and starts your LH surge as the inhibition for estradiol goes from negative to positive. Okay, so that is mediated by this loss of sensitivity to dopamine and endorphins, which are helping the estradiol keep that secretion from the hypothalamus under control. And once that inhibitory signal is gone, it allows the estrogen to switch from negative to positive, and you get the surge. Okay. So after ovulation, we will enter the luteal phase. This is where the follicle becomes a corpus luteum. The granulosal cells increase the number of LH receptors, and this increases the release of progesterone, and I'll show you why that happens and how. And you get a pretty large increase in progesterone during this period, and estrogen is still released at lower levels than the LH surge. So the estrogen levels drop fairly quickly, and then they're sustained at a reasonably high level after that. I'll show you again on the profile, and that contributes to the effects that you see during this stage as well. All right? So that is a quick around the horn re-emphasis of the follicular stage from a hormonal perspective, and I sort of introduced the luteal stage here. And in the next video, we will go over each of these stages in considerably more detail and talk about them.